Welcome to Command the Clock. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how I use Google Calendar for clarity, capacity, and control. And my goals here are you will learn how to use your Google Calendar as a strategic planning tool. It's not just an appointment book. And I'm going to show you some systems for time blocking, collaboration, and delegation. And hopefully we will figure out ways to reduce overwhelm by aligning tasks with capacity. And my goal is that you will build habits that support focus, reflection, and execution. And by the way, one of the things I require of all my clients is they have to block what I call the focused work day. And basically what we're doing is 10 hours, any 10 hours of the week, set aside just for strategic working on the business, not in the business, sort of high level strategic things. And we work with it. Either you can do a single day of 10 hours, not my favorite because nobody can be strategic and productive for 10 hours straight. Or I do 2 days of 5 hours, or more likely and most realistically, I do 5 2-hour slots. So one of the things I do is I use time blocking to preserve that. I will show you in action how to use your calendar defensively and maybe a little bit offensively. But basically, I use Google Calendar, and really, truly, if it's not in my calendar, it doesn't exist. And I've made that choice. Even with my personal life, I put stuff in the calendar, and that way I can use my brain for processing rather than remembering. And I always say that future Jeff thanks today, Jeff, for taking the extra seconds to put things in a calendar. So I'm going to show you how to create and share a calendar, how to set up events with reminders, guests, and locations. We'll use color coding for priority and context. We will talk about time blocking for that deep work or for that tedious admin or for meetings. And we'll talk about appointment slots and booking pages. So the days of using external scheduling links are fast disappearing. Full disclosure, I still use Calendly only because I haven't taken the time to integrate my calendar. Calendly, you're next on my to-do list of things to eliminate. So one of my little rants is I'm always looking at what can I eliminate, automate, or delegate. And people say, but Jeff, there's better tools. Sure, there are better tools for certain things, but my choice is everything I use has to be in the Google ecosystem. And honestly, if it doesn't exist, I probably didn't need it. So we'll show you that. And then we'll get into notifications, integrations, and how you can embed your calendar into Docs, Gmail, and Sites. We'll probably not spend a lot of time on Sites because it's less urgent, but we will get there. So first things first, what we need to know is, okay, so one of my pet peeves is when I have a meeting and I invite people to the meeting, then I get constant bombardment with can't make it, people decline, and it's just incessant. So one of the things you can do is create a calendar for events that people can subscribe to the calendar instead of replying to events and things. So I'm going to show you how to open Google Calendar. And like most things, the URL is calendar.google.com. And I don't want to overwhelm you, so I'm going to show you Alex's calendar because his calendar is way less crazy. And as always, you can go to the Google Apps, the 3x3 grid at the top right, and you can open Calendar. Oops. Let's go to Alex. Wait a minute. This is not Alex. Okay. For some reason, Alex's calendar is not showing. Technology. Okay. So Okay, so sorry, you're gonna have to see my calendar um, in all its glory. And this is not completely optimized, but here, let's just, there we go. So let's just close a few of these. Okay. So this is a blank calendar, so we don't get too freaked out. And basically, it says click next other calendars. And it's going to hide, isn't it? Okay, so down here at the bottom, other calendars plus, and you can subscribe to someone else's calendar. You can create a new calendar. You can look for calendars, or if somebody gives you a URL, or if somebody uses Outlook or something else, you can import. So browse calendars of interest. Maybe you want to see Christian holidays, Hindu, Jewish, Muslim, Orthodox. You can see those. If you're a sports fan, you can see different categories. Maybe you want to see phases of the moon. So literally, if there's events, you can see it in a calendar. So I usually manage public holidays by adding them to my calendar. So that's just something you can do. You can see other calendars. And okay, this seems to be, why not? Let's have phases. Okay, so you can subscribe to the calendar. All right. So now, once you see the calendar, or you've subscribed to it, so you can see here, I can click on it to activate it, or click on it again to deactivate it. So I'm going to create a new calendar, and I have a mastermind. And here you set the time zone. You will by default be the owner, and then you can create the calendar. And you can see it's creating it. So now I should see it. Yeah, I got too many calendars on the go. There it is. So I can make it available to the public. So if I want other people, they can either see free busy, they can see all event details by default, and I can't change this. It's shareable internally. And then you can get the shareable link, which I can send to people, and they can subscribe to the calendar, and then it'll be automatically updatable in their calendar. So we'll copy that link, and then we can email it. Now, I can set the notifications I want to receive. So maybe I want to be 10 minutes before, and sometimes these are important to me, so I want to be notified 1 day before. And then sometimes it's an all-day event. You want a specific notification. I need at least a week's notice for something like that. And then you can set the notifications you get when an event is added, changed, canceled, people respond. My default, I don't like notifications, so I set them all off, but I'm always in my calendar. So I can use this embed code to put this on a website. And I can use the iCal format for, I think that's to do with, obviously it's to do with Apple. And then if I'm done with that, I can unsubscribe. And if it's my calendar and nobody else is using it, I can delete. So let's get out of there. So now what I can do is I can change the color. So let's make that banana, and you can see that. Now, when I'm in my main calendar, any events from this will appear in banana. So color coding is very helpful, very useful. We meet monthly meeting. So there are a couple ways to create a calendar. Sorry. You can use the create an event, a focus time, out of office, working location, task, appointment schedule. So whatever you need to create. And then, so let's say we're going to create an event, and so you can drag and drop it anywhere on the calendar that you can see. And by the way, up here you have your default views. You can see the day, the week, the month, the year, scheduled appointments, 4 days. I always do a week because that way I can sort of see what's going on. If you want a month, you can see that. Curious, I've never ever wanted to see my year at a glance. So not very helpful, but if you need to count dates or you need to find a date, year view works. What I like about month is I can see what I have on the go at a high level, but I usually do week, and that way I can see, and I always start with Sunday through Saturday, so I can see what's coming up in a given week. So you can click the create button over here to create something specific, or you can just click in any one of your calendar slots and it will default to an hour. You can drag and drop it. If you want, you can drag it to shorten it to half hour. But basically, best practice is you want a meaningful title, what the meeting is about. And again, you can change to focus time, etc. here. If you have a remote team or you have a hybrid team, it's useful for people to know who's working from home and when. So very, very simple. I can click on here, and this is scheduled for June 4th, 11:30 till noon. The time zone is my local time zone. I can click on here to see more detail. So I can change time zone. I, for the life of me, don't really know why you'd ever do this, but you could use different start and end time zones. If you have a use for that, good on you. Now you know it's there. If you don't have a use for it, welcome to the club. So I usually use the right time zone for the right people. So if I have a meeting with local people, I use my time zone. If I have a meeting where I'm the only outside party, so for example, I might have a group in New York or Toronto, I might use Eastern time, and that way it shows up in their calendars with the correct time. And in my experience, it's easier as the organizer for you to do it than to hope that your participants can add or subtract. I don't know what it is, but when you have a time in Mountain, people from the East tend to add to instead of subtracting to. So I make it easy, put it in their time zone. The other thing is you can have recurring meetings. So the default is does not repeat. You can set it for daily, weekly on Wednesdays, monthly on, you can do the first, second, third, fourth Wednesday. You can do it annually on the date. You can do it every weekday or custom. And custom is fun because I do a lot of every other week. So it'll repeat every 2 weeks, for example, on a Wednesday. And here you can set the end date. So for example, my kids, they have school year activities. I set them all to end at the end of their school year so that I don't see reminders to do things during the summer. Or you can set it after X number of occurrences. Maybe you run a group program that meets 12 times. You come in here and you set it to 12 and then just hit done. So that's handy. Now, this is where it gets very useful. If you're doing a meeting and you need to add guests, I usually use groups, which is a conversation for another video. But you just type in their name and they will get invitations, and they'll be able to accept or reject it. And you can set their permissions. Rarely do I allow people to modify events. I'm now learning not to let them invite others, because we're in this age of all of the AI bots are joining, even if the people can't be bothered to show or they can't make it. So I want to remove that. And then if it's a meeting where everybody needs to know who's coming, they should be able to see the guest list. If it's kind of a private session, take that out. And then I can set those as my defaults. But that's the guest. Now, this is where I love the integrations. With a little drop down arrow, I can set Google Meet. It is the default. I still use Zoom once in a while, but I'm getting more and more to the point where I just use Google Meet. And people always say, where's the link? Where's the link? There's the link. If it is in fact included in the calendar, and you can copy it and paste it into an email just by clicking this little copy thing. And I can see more details. So there's the meeting ID, there's the dial-in. Now, if it's a physical location, this is where future me always thanks me. I will add the address right in here. And it is amazing. Let's do. So there's an address, and it puts everything, including the postal code. It's great because you can preview it in Maps. Now, this is the piece most people don't use well. I want you to see down here, we can add a description. Please do. This is where I always put my agenda. And this is just simple. You got some very basic text editing functionality. And more importantly, add an attachment. So if you're using Google Drive, you can add an attachment. We're talking about command the clock. So maybe that's the attachment. And best practices, I have people all the time. I really truly get annoyed when they, where's the link? Where's this? Where's that? Put it all in one place. And by the way, if an email spawns a meeting, you can copy the link from the email. So you just go up to the browser here and you copy it. And in your notes, you can actually put the link there so people can click that and it goes straight. So every email that you have in Gmail has its own unique URL. So you can literally share that for people in the meeting. And then you can, there's more options. So you get this full screen. I've pretty much shown you all of them. So now it's all of these details are there. This is which calendar is it on. So I'm going to add it to the Pharos Founder Circle. You'll notice the color changed. For the public, I want this to be seen as busy. And I can use the default visibility, which in this case is private, or I can make it public or private by overriding it. So if it's public, anyone can see the event details. If you've got a community, I recommend public. If it's something only in-house, anybody with make changes to events can see it. And then, of course, when you're done, you want to hit save. Oh, again, give it a meaningful title. Mastermind session, Google Calendar. Hit save. And now you can just, if you want to see what the event is or the details, you can just hover over it and double click and magically, and you can make changes and other people can suggest times. So you can print your calendar, you can delete it, you can duplicate it, you can copy it to other calendars. You could publish this for the public, or you can change ownership. Let's say you want to give it to a new head of marketing. They're taking over the marketing calendar. You would change owner. Like I said, I prefer to use groups rather than individuals, but that's one way around it. That to me is probably the most functionality you need. You can also create tasks and track them within your calendar. Let's see what else our little document says we must know. Okay, where did it go? All right, here we go. So we covered that. Create. Oh, let's get into time blocking. So one of the first pieces of homework I have for my people is they have to time block. So we talked about the focused work day. So usually what I suggest is pick the time of day when you have the most energy, the most focus, and block that to do your most strategic things. So personally, I find meetings drain me. So I try to schedule my focus time before I have meetings. So you can see this is focus time. It's got do not disturb. It'll mute chat notifications. It will automatically decline meetings. So I can decline new and existing. And you can set your message. I don't know why I'd tell people I'm in focus time and then give them a location to disrupt my focus. So I personally wouldn't use that. And then if, for example, for me, I'm working on a project, I'm going to put whatever links and attachments I need so that when I sit down for my focus time, I just have to click on the links and I'm there. And then that's it. Okay, so let's go. I don't want to see me. I just want to see the focus. Oops. Oh, and by the way, I saved it to the wrong calendar. It keeps defaulting to my main calendar. So wherever that went, it is hiding. Okay. Let's see. So that's time blocking. So I recommend at a minimum 2 hours a day, heavily strategic, high focus. This is not the time to do things. This is the time to set priorities, plan, etc. And it is magical. If you block off 10 hours a week of intentional focus and you keep those appointments, your business will move ahead further and faster because you're strategic, not reactive. All right. And again, maybe you need some time for email. I highly recommend buffer time between meetings. So in my Calendly, if somebody's booking, I set a limit on how many of each type of meeting I'm willing to have every day, every week in total. And I also put 15 minutes between so that I can't get booked ever back to back. And I always have 1 hour a week where it is pure strategy. I'm doing nothing but focusing on my business. That is also part of my deep work. So I really double down on the strategic planning. And then you can color them. And here's the important thing. The critical stuff, the deep work is super critical. It's important. Unfortunately, it's not urgent. So it tends to get pushed. I would say that's your most sacred meeting in the week. So try to avoid pushing it. This is where you're thinking about the long-term strategy of your business. It is deeply important. And again, color code it so that at a glance, you can look at your calendar. I've got different colors mean different things. I need to change some of the colors because they're starting to blur together. For example, I have podcast guests. They should be a different color than my regular meetings, just so I can at a glance see what my day looks like. Okay, now, one of the tools that I've just found recently is this appointment schedule. And basically, you can set meeting length, availability, buffer time, and you get a link that you can share with people. And what I love is you can actually add intake questions with required fields. So it's a little hard to see, but my calendar every day, I do my focus time earlier, but every day I have from 9 until noon the ability for others to book appointments with me. And again, I don't do hour longs anymore. They exhaust me and it's too easy to go back to back. So mine are 45 minutes. And basically, here's what you do. So I don't have meetings on weekends, Mondays or Fridays. So my meetings are literally only Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday from 9 a.m. till 1:30. And so I can add another period to each day. I can make days unavailable. I can copy this time to all days. I won't do it, but I could. And of course, I set my time zone. And this repeats weekly. I can say this is just for a specific week. It does not repeat. I can do custom. And you can set your duration. I highly recommend, instead of 1 hour, I don't know who decided meetings were an hour, but I do mine in 45-minute blocks. And then down here, I find if somebody's booking a meeting more than 30 days out, they're just wasting their time and mine taking up calendar space because they're not really serious about meeting with me. There are exceptions. And in those exceptions, then I will change. And then I can also adjust the specific dates availability. So for example, if I have a doctor's appointment on a Tuesday, I will have that specific Tuesday unavailable. And again, I've got a 15-minute buffer time, and at most I allow 3 bookings per day, and I have set the guest permissions, and this is my default calendar, and then I can add co-hosts if I want. So that's a pretty cool functionality. As I get used to it more and more, I can see my Calendly subscription is annual, so when my next renewal comes up, I won't be renewing. Sorry, Calendly. And then, oh, yes, you can share your booking link. So I can open a booking page. This is what the regular public will see. And I like this, jump to the next available date. So June 10th is my next available, 10 a.m. And I can also share all appointment, a single booking page, and call it what I want. I can embed it in my website. And basically, I can just copy that link and email it to somebody and say, grab a time that works for you. So I have different links for different types of meetings. My client meetings always have more availability than, for example, meet and greets. I limit my meet and greets to a couple a week. My podcast, I limit to 5 a week, things like that. So it's amazing what you can do with the flexibility of Google Calendar. And then if you have events, you can double click on the event and you can add a label, which is kind of handy. You can name it something, and then you assign the color and then hit save. So you can see it's labeled and it's color coded. I can change that label. But what that does is it allows me to analyze my time and see where my time went. And at a glance, I can see, so one of the things in this modern era, I have a different color for offsite meetings because I know that I will forget. And I'm so used to in virtual meetings that I go from one to the next. I have to be reminded to get in the car and drive. So for real in-person meetings, I have a different color so that I know, and I always block, believe it or not, if I know it's going to take me half an hour, I will block that so I remember to leave. I leave nothing to chance with my memory. If it's not my calendar, it doesn't exist. So color coding is huge. So if you're blocking time, you might use some of these just as examples. And of course, we talked about sharing your calendar. So let's talk about notifications, because I am one of those people for my video conference. I don't need the next day notice. I always look at tomorrow's calendar before I wrap up so I know what my day looks like. But what you can do, and this is really kind of cool, is add notifications. So if I'm inviting other people to the meeting, I've learned most people want a notification the day before and then 10 minutes before. Some people want an hour before. You set it based on your audience, but you come into your meeting and you can set the notification type. So you can get a pop-up or you can get an email. I usually do notification because I'm in the calendar. My calendar is open all the time. If I'm working, it's open. You can adjust the time and you can adjust the units of time. So if somebody needs a week's notice, great. So this is the active notification. Now I can add another one. So for example, I would add 1 day's notice and then I just hit save and I will get a pop-up reminding me probably almost immediately saying, hey, tomorrow at 9, you have a call with Steve Harper. Now in email, where did Alex go? You can see the calendar is on the right. And I can add other apps by clicking on this plus, but I can see the calendar in context next to my email. Alex's calendar might not be set up yet because I just literally created his account yesterday. Okay. So it's taking its time, but basically you can see the calendar. And if you've got public events, if you're doing, let's say you're doing a live workshop, I would highly recommend having a calendar you can share with people with networking events and things like that. So that is some of the most powerful tools for using Google Calendar. You can fast forward a week, rewind a week. You can see the date. It's a really, really powerful. And all I can say is play with it, be curious, and find new ways to use it. Thank you.